online either.
But let me tell you
Prayer just like scripture.
There's a school that I didn't, Gail and I drove it on Sunday. Talk about a drive. So much of it is dirt.
Dirt roads, yeah.
Man, we bounced
I
along.
drove through there once.
You know, we drove through again because I was trying to figure out what they changed.
You got a minute to go.
We did. But by Guppy, we're not gonna waste time.
All right. They're ready, we're ready.
Good morning. I would like to call the December meeting of the Hardyville Planning Commission to order. First order of business, invocation and pledge. Rick?
Thank you for this.
Well, thank you.
Good morning. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us here today. Lord, thank you for bringing us into the holiday and let us understand what is the true meaning behind Christmas. And thank you. Give us the strength to do a good job today. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
thank you. Is that what you want to speak that? Well, that's a 7-second delay.
Can we just,
I think we have to.
what you need us to say?
Something.
Well, it's like.
Still getting it.
It's about a 30-second delay.
Yeah, it's longer than 7.
speakers in here.
I hate to talk because I don't want to hear it.
Got it in?
What, okay. Something?
No echo, no reverb?
We don't know yet.
It was 30 seconds last time.
I think we're good. Because I don't.
Okay.
That's
Sarah.
fine.
It's really distracting out here because we hear it like 20 seconds, 30 seconds too. Yes. So like if we're talking, we're gonna hear ourselves. We're getting it in the Teams. Yeah, just close out of Teams.
It's on your phone. Tell OC he's in trouble. Okay, they're going.
We've disconnected teams altogether, huh?
It's still doing.
Still doing it.
There it goes. Disconnected.
Can we just,
We got a hot mic or something somewhere.
we may have gotten it. Okay. I think you're good.
Testing. No echo. All right. Back to the meeting. Thank you, Rick. Next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do we have any adds or modifications?
I don't see.
Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. All right, motion carries. Before we move on, Commission Member Foreman will be a little late. He will be here, but he'll be late. All right, do we have any public comments on things other than what's before the commission today? Seeing none, let's go to old business. Approval of the minutes from the November 8th Planning Commission meeting. Does anybody have any changes up here?
I do not.
I don't. I do. Page 2, second paragraph. There's a little problem with the phrasing of the last two sentences there. Planning Director Snowden commented that while it is in the East Argent inside the city limits, it will be maintained by the city. I just think there ought to be a that, and then while the section in East Argent is inside the city limits, it will be maintained by the city. Then in the 5th paragraph of that same section, Seipel asked about a timeline, and the way I have it in my notes is that design will start January 24, receive permits 25, and first homes started shortly thereafter with build-out in January 27. That's what I got in my notes.
It says here.
No. First home started after build-out in January 22nd. The sentence is not a good sentence. The grammar's bad. All right. Page 3, paragraph 3, commented on the site visibility triangle. Katie provided more detail there. Yes, there'll be a minimum, 5 foot from the edge of the sidewalk, the right-of-ways, but there was also discussion about where any landscaping would be and how tall the landscaping could be to allow for visibility. So Katie has the words to put in there. In Article 6, that first paragraph, Mr. Foreman made comments about the one section in there about approval of capital budgets, and that doesn't it doesn't show up here. He was concerned there's something that says we're supposed to do something that we're not going to do for all the right reasons, but it doesn't show up in here, and that was a substantial discussion. Then on page 4, commission comments, again, some phraseology, last sentence of that first paragraph of section 2. Ms. Woodruff responded to city-built main entry road, I said we should say, is under construction from Route 17 and may eventually connect I-95 exit 3. So again, a little more detail that should be in there. Next paragraph, Vice Chair Talbot asked about work on John Smith. Responded that we should add a phrase in there. Responded that the construction is in preparation for I-95 being widened. And then in the 4th paragraph, Chair Seipel asked for an update on the realignment of the intersection at Shortcut and Argent. So, and then that update was provided by Brianna. So those are my changes. I can pass it down to you if you'd like to have it. Might make your life a little easier. So,
I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes as amended.
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda is the update to the MZDO.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to start this process and then we can answer some questions but Mr. Brown, our Public Works Director, John Brown, has a presentation for you on the stormwater ordinance and as it relates to Soloco and other things. So we're excited about that, and hopefully we can get this moving forward and get this adopted soon. So just a few slides, and we're not wanting to work here. Okay. It's on.
You want the hammer?
I don't. I don't.
They're not working.
This is a great day.
All right. We'll try again. Good morning again, and we're here to talk about the MZDO revisions and information. This is where we are from the last meeting where we discussed it. We've gone through it repeatedly. The consultants have gone through it and had some questions from Mr. Seipel as well. Our next step is to take action on this and move it to City Council, where they will have their hearings on this matter as well. We have revised the document based on Planning Commission comments from the last meeting. There were some clarifications. Some things you asked to be changed or commented on, and once we talked to the attorneys and everything else, we clarified it, but we're not able to make all changes per state law and that. And as I mentioned, Attorney Maines did review this document, and you have a you have a memo from her to that effect that she has gone through it. And let me tell you, she went through it carefully. So I appreciate her help in that as well. We're going to talk about stormwater and erosion control. That's the one thing we didn't dive into in this matter. We have our existing that we've been working with for years. We have the Soloco design manual. And as I mentioned, Mr. Brown's going to talk about that. He spent a lot of time with other jurisdictions. We got some pros and cons. And so I'm going to turn it over to John and let him get into his presentation, and then we will go from there.
This is how you're going to get your steps in today?
Is that table big enough?
Yeah, I'm just gonna take it from here. and drop it underneath.
He's got quite the production, so.
Yeah,
I didn't bring a
nothing like
pillow.
that. I'm hoping this is not going to take very long. We're going to try to get to it fairly quickly. But back in October, as you probably remember, I got up in front of you and we talked a little bit about the Soloco design manual and things. And so since then, I've literally been involved in a research project. So I've gone through a lot of documentation, a lot of regulations and such to try to answer primarily what the mayor's question was. He said,
Because it's a PDF.
oh, so I have to click from this. Okay, all right, perfect. Sorry about that. So, Mr. Mayor had asked, hey, show me specifics about what's in the MZDO and how it relates or compares to what's in the design manual. So that was the direction I took, and that's what I'm trying to present to you today. So, if you would, down on the brief itself, I got to scroll this, you said?
Yes.
Okay. If we look at the purpose, it's real quick, I'm talking about the purpose of what I'm trying to do here. So this is a continuing effort, of course, from this brief here that you gentlemen probably know, right? You've seen this before. This was done in 22. It was a comparison of just what we're talking about right now, the design manual, the ordinance, along with MZDO. So if you haven't seen that or anything, I'm more than happy to provide a copy to you. That's what started this whole effort, was to look at that. So this brief's going to take a little bit deeper look into what the design manual says and what MZDO has in its sections, as well as the references that it pulls in from South Carolina DHEC. I'm going to attempt to answer a couple questions. Primarily, what problem does the design manual solve that the MZDO doesn't? Okay, that's one question I'm going to try to answer. And then as well, is the design manual applicable for Hardeeville? We need to look at that as well. And then finally make a couple recommendations towards the end. I'm sure you gentlemen probably already know most of this, if not all, but I just wanted to give a little bit of quick history background where this all came from. It all started back 72 with the Clean Water Act when it was brought in. Basically said, hey, it's illegal to discharge any pollutants into the waters of the United States. Clear, right? We all understand that. 70s and 80s, we saw some research projects going on, and what they identified was, hey, stormwater indeed is a significant contributor to the pollution that we see in our waters. And in 87, as you see there, Clean Water Act was amended. It brought in the framework for the MPDES program, if you will, that we are still working under today. So at that time, when it first came in, it was for 5 acres or more for development or construction. But then later on in 99, what we see is that was reduced to 1 acre or more. And I've got the permit right here. If anybody wants to look at it or go through it, I've already tabbed it out in the areas that you probably need to focus on. Be more than happy to share that with you. The authority to basically control this MPDES permit program was given to South Carolina DHEC by EPA, and that's what we've been doing so far. So if you look at the bottom there, that's the bottom lines. Federal and state regulations influenced by the environmental movements of the 60s and 70s has resulted in stricter stormwater runoff requirements today. That's not a bad thing. That's actually good. I'm happy to see that. So if we look on the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the design manual. Basically, it's a collaborative effort. It presents a watershed approach. Watershed approach essentially means doesn't matter the jurisdiction, doesn't matter the municipality, it's in the watershed. So if it's in the watershed, it should comply with certain regulations, certain design standards and such. That's what the design manual calls out. It encourages implementation of the green infrastructure, ideas, low impact development. Again, not bad things. That's what it has. The design manual has been adopted up and down the East Coast, many jurisdictions. However, nearly every one has been an amended version to fit that particular jurisdiction or that municipality, whatever the case may be. Looking to, actually, let me go back on this here. So when we're talking about comparing, if you will, the MZDO to the design manual, we've got to be careful with that. MZDO is an ordinance. Design manual is a technical design spec, if you will, how we're going to take care of things. You can't really do that apples to apples. So in order to do that properly, you've got to dig deeper into the MZDO. The MZDO has a lot of references. It calls out South Carolina DHEC and such, as I'll go through here. Once we do that, now we've got an apples to apples comparison, and we can look at how do we compare certain key requirements that are in the design manual with what the MZDO calls out through its references. So I just wanted to make that clear as we go forward. We look at the MZDO. How does it compare? Well, let's take a look at it. So erosion and sediment control requirements, all right, that are called out in the design manual. If you look at the MZDO section that I've given you here, clearly says plans shall conform to South Carolina DHEC and the OCRM requirements. The NPDES, the general permit for construction, gives us the requirements, defines them fairly well. That's what we follow with our projects and our developments right now. When we're talking about stormwater management requirements, again, there's the MZDO section that calls that out. Again, any construction or development affecting quality or quantity of stormwater runoff shall be in accordance with the stormwater management plan. There's already a process in the city right now. It's a pretty good, thorough process to evaluate and to approve stormwater master plans. It's handled through the Planning and Development Department. So we are already doing that. And again, the city defers to the requirements that were already established in the NPDES to help us with that, if you will. Minimum water quality requirements. Again, there's the MZDO section that calls that out. Says shall meet the South Carolina DHEC water quality regulations. And also the city maintains the right to tell the developer, I want you to look deeper into this. I want you to add something to this, if you will, if the city feels like it needs to be done. Yes, sir.
If DHEC updates their standards, then they automatically flow into this document because you are referring them to meet the water quality standards of DHEC.
Yes. So right now, that's what we are doing. We are following the state regulations and the federal regulations, if you will, for water quality, water quantity, stormwater runoff, if you will, and that's coming through the South Carolina DHEC regulations.
And
Yes.
any changes they make automatically flow into this.
Indeed, yes. So essentially, the bottom line on that is the city of Hardeeville, MZDO, complies with federal and state regulations in controlling the quantity and the quality of stormwater runoff. That's exactly what I just said. I hate that I just repeated myself, but that's what that says. So the next slide essentially goes into key requirements. There are some key requirements within the design manual that I truly wanted to take a look at and see how it related to the MZDO. So the first one is better site design. We've all heard that. Reduce an impervious cover, conserve open space, prevent stormwater pollution, reduce overall cost. The first one there, preventing stormwater impacts rather than mitigating them. I think it's a general engineering principle that you want to prevent instead of mitigate. It's clear that mitigation most times costs more money than it does to prevent up front. So I'm going to say, hey, that's a given, that's implied. If you look down at the MZDO, here's how we compare to that. Reducing impervious cover, there's the section. Conserving open space, there's the section. Limiting stormwater pollution, there's the section, but it also references South Carolina DHEC as well. Reducing overall cost of development, again, this is kind of an implied thing. I think developers, contractors and such want to work to reduce that cost, to keep it down. I think you got to look at the fact that that's kind of an implied statement there. So if you look at this and this requirement, better site design, I would say that the MZDO compares very well with what the design manual puts out. The next key requirement that I pulled up was best management practices. We've all heard this. Best management practices, what I do is I give you here the definition from South Carolina DHEC Regulation 72301, which talks about that. It essentially means the best management practices effectively control the quality and or the quantity of stormwater runoff, which are compatible with planned land use. MZDO, if you look at it, it doesn't specifically list these out. However, it does reference South Carolina DHEC best management practices, which is this right here. You've probably seen this. If you haven't, again, I'm more than happy to share a copy with you if you like. So what the chart does for us there, it lists out the 13 best management practices that the design manual goes into. Over to the right, the MZDO, through its references, lays out 11 of those, talks about 11 of those. However, the other two, the green roof and the rainwater harvesting that are sitting there, that says no, we're looking at that as being kind of a recommendation or requirement. There's no recommendation right now for us to have green roofs in Hardeeville, nor any recommendation or requirement for us to have rainwater harvesting in Hardeeville. But let's say we did. And what do we have in place right now that we should include, and this is a recommendation in the MZDO, is this, Jasper County Stormwater Design Manual. Didn't even know this existed until this research project kicked off for me, and I found it as I went through the process of trying to pull all the documents. This actually has one of our consultants, actually Thomas and Hutton was part of this, put this together. I read through it. There's a lot of stuff in this manual right here from Jasper County that's literally in the design manual, word for word, charts taken out of this, put into the design manual and such. So this here should be a good document that we should also ask our consultants to consider, perhaps, as they go through the design for developments and construction.
But within the city of Hardeeville, that isn't a requirement.
No, it's not a requirement. That's why I'm saying we should consider it. You don't say shall use this. You say should consider. There might be something in that document for a design consultant, if you will, that would help with the design. Who knows? I don't think we should limit the things that should be considered, right? Moving on to the next requirement that's in the design manual that we took. Oh, actually, let me back up on that. Let's stay on this for a second. So if you see the third one down in the chart here, it's called infiltration. Infiltration, what does that mean? It means the stormwater is going to infiltrate into the ground, right? If it's sitting in a pond, there's two ways it can go. It can go up, it can go down, essentially, if it's meant to stay there, right? Infiltration. Infiltration basically takes good soils, right? Yet soils play a big part in that. So we gotta be careful on the infiltration piece here. And I'd like to talk a little bit more about this. So as I go into this infiltration best management practice, it's kind of hard to see on the screen, but in front of you, you could probably see better. It's just the region, right? So you look to the west, it's Hardeeville, Bluffton's in the middle, Island's over on the east, right? It's just a map coming right off of, it's either, I don't know where I think I got this out of our GeoThink. So if you take that right there, and you go to the next slide, this is that same area with an overlay of the soil types. Now let's look at Bluffton. If you look at Bluffton, Bluffton has a lot of greens, some yellows. That's considered hydrologic soil group A, B type stuff. What does that mean? That means low runoff potential, low to moderate runoff potential. It's not running off. What's it doing? It's infiltrating. It's going down, right? So Bluffton right now, if you look at their code, it kind of goes along with the design manual, which kind of encourages infiltration practices. That's good if you have the right soils to do that. What we're finding in Hardeeville, and this kind of shows, you see a lot of browns up there. You see some greens, you see some yellows. If you see a lot of browns, and what does that mean? It means the exact opposite. It's not going to infiltrate. It's going to run off. There's more clay material in this area than there is in Bluffton, and so best management practices have to be selected appropriately to handle those types of things. So we got to be careful when we look at the design manual, and it kind of really highly encourages retention of stormwater on the site, implying that, hey, we're going to have the infiltration that's needed to treat that water and dissipate that water. So we just kind of be careful with that, if you will. The next key requirement that I looked at was maximum extent practicable. First of all, let me say, this is about one of the most subjective terms I've ever heard or studied in my life. Maximum extent practicable. I could give you my own personal definition, but the four of you sitting up there would probably have exactly something different, if you will, than what I come up with. What does it mean? So we got to be careful with that. So what I've laid out here, essentially, excuse me one second. What I've laid out here is just a few examples. So if you look at the Clean Water Act, just basically says, hey, reduce discharges of pollutants using management practices, using control techniques, system design, and such. Okay, that's all good and well. I printed that out from the Clean Water Act, and that's what I wrote down here for you directly from the Clean Water Act. If you look at the MPDES, the permit, the construction permit that Hardyville works under for their developments and their construction, you see, the best management practices designed, installed, and maintained to achieve maximum pollutant removal to the extent that the permittee's discharges shall not basically cause any kind of negative impact downstream on water quality. But then you got the SCDOT. I actually went to the DOT as well. Here's their stormwater management design guide, if you will. The DOT says, level of effort deemed necessary to comply with state and federal water quality goals, considering common knowledge of pollutants and discharges, impact on water quality, and, key point, commonly used engineering design standards. The design manual that we've talking about here today literally goes with what the Clean Water Act says. It basically lays out the same thing. It follows that to a T. But the design manual also says it establishes a fee in lieu process. And that typically means if the contractor or the developer cannot meet the requirements of the design manual, then they'll pay a fee. They'll pay a fee to the city. Well, question is, who decides what that is? Because the city now has to take it upon themselves to perform that work. Who's going to do that work? Who's going to maintain that work? We have to be careful with that fee in lieu process. Yes, sir.
So is this like a monthly bill they would get?
I think this how it's set up. It's either set up something similar to that, or it's a lump sum that's going to be paid to the city that says, hey, to put this best management practice in place, it would cost us this much, or we just can't get to the point for water quality or retention that you're asking us to get to, and here's what the cost. I guess it would be maybe a negotiated cost. Again, I don't know exactly that framework as to how that would be paid to the city, but you got to be careful with that because the money's coming into the city. Of course, it's for storm water, this fee in lieu, but there could be opportunities for that money to kind of creep in other areas. You just don't know, so you got to be careful with that.
But if they couldn't meet the design standard, and they come back and say, it would cost us this much to do that, wouldn't that still be on the developer as a cost of doing business? Why would it fall back on the city?
The way the design manual lays it out is, hey, if the contractor can't meet the regulations for whatever reason that they say they can't meet the regulations, and it's been approved by the city in discussions with the city, then the city is going to require a fee because the city now is going to take that money. The idea here is the city would take that money and conduct that work, perform that work, whatever it might be. But then the city would also have to maintain that.
So would the city have the opportunity to say, nope, we don't want that liability? So either you take care of it or you're denied.
Absolutely. I believe that would be the way to go with it. And so as we go further in this, if this is something that we think we want to add in there, we need to put some amendment to that to say pretty much what you just said, right? So that the liability on the city is not so great. So I think the way the design manual was written, the intent of it perhaps was, hey, you either get out there and do this or you're going to pay us to do it. Well, some municipalities, some jurisdictions probably have the resources and the manpower to do that. At this point in time, Hardyville does not. We have to be careful with that.
So is this a deficiency or an oversight in the proposed MZDO we need to address?
I do not think so. I do not think it's something that we need to address at this point. Moving on to the next one. So that was maximum extent practical. Well, hopefully I made my point there that is very subjective. Many, different agencies have a different way of defining what that actually is. Okay. Moving on to the next key requirement. This is a big one, water quality. If you look at the design manual, it focuses heavily on water quality. It focuses on water quantity as well, but in terms of essentially ultimately impacting water quality standards, if you will. It sets limits for, total suspended solids, nitrogen, bacteria, directs the 85th and 95th percentile storm for basically sizing that retention area of what they're saying, the stormwater retention that's going to have to stay on site, as well as sizing their their BMPs for pre-development levels. Again, heavily relies upon stormwater retention on site, again, which then goes into the whole infiltration discussion, if you will. The MZDO referencing DHEX regulations and NPDES, again, calls for appropriate design to achieve maximum pollutant removal for water quality, uses the 210 25-year events to size the BMPs appropriately, and again, forcing it back down to pre-development levels. That's the key to all of this. SCDOT, again, I'm using them because they're an agency that works in and through our jurisdiction here. We have to kind of work together. If they're putting something into the streams that might be a pollutant, we need to know about that, and we need to be kind of on the same page with them as they do their work. But again, the 2 and 10-year storm event to size their BMPs, and they also have BMPs that address the suspended solids, nutrients, and bacteria. So essentially, the bottom line on this is that all agencies comply with water quality standards. They encourage the removal of pollutants to the maximum extent. As we move on, I'm sticking with the water quality here, again comparing. What you see here is a screenshot out of the South Carolina Watershed Atlas. It's off of the South Carolina DHEC website, if you will. What this is showing us is impaired waters. So the heavy lines, it's hard to see, but in your handout, it should be orange. That's the outline of the counties, if you will. Jasper County being the biggest part of this here. You see 95 going up through the middle. You can see where Hardyville is and Bluffton. These dots indicate impaired waters. So what we wanted to understand was, okay, what are the impaired waters that we're dealing with here in Jasper County? What are the impairments? And so the impairments that we found by going through this December 22, it's actually a little less than a year old Environmental Protection Agency 303D list that basically lists out all of impaired waterways, if you will. We found all of them for Jasper County. And the things that we saw were mercury impairments, dissolved oxygen, etero, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a bacteria from humans, animals, food, water, soil. E. coli, of course we know about that, bacteria from humans and animals. And the turbidity, which is mainly from the suspended solids that are in the water, makes it cloudy, makes it dark, it just affects the waters. The impaired uses that we see right now in Jasper County, aquatic life, recreation, swimming in certain areas, you don't want to swim, and then consuming the fish that you catch due to mainly the mercury, essentially, that's in the waters. So we looked at that. Now the next page, or the next slide rather, excuse me, is the same slide, but it's bringing you in a little bit closer to Hardyville. On your slide, it's a red oval in the middle. That kind of shows exit 5, exit 8. So that would be, I would consider, the core of our city, if you will, right there. There's 3 dots that I've called out for impairments that are close by. And so if you look at that, if you look to the top one there, Savannah River at Beck's Ferry, there's a mercury impairment, and that again affects consumption of the fish that you catch out there. If you look down below, we got Millstone Landing, mercury again, likely the same waterway, so that's probably what's going on there. If you look over to further to the east, you see New River at 170, mercury, intero, so it affects recreation or swimming and fish consumption and things like that. So what we looked at in dealing with this was, could we perhaps put something into the MZDO that says developments and construction which directly impacts impaired waters. Now, when I say directly, I mean within a half mile or so, should consider more stringent BMPs as to not impact water quality downstream. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. This helps us to see, where the waters around Hardyville, where the impairments are located. And if we're close to one of those in any kind of development, now I believe the car track development will be close to the New River, the one that's down to the bottom right there. So maybe that's something we need to take a look at to make sure that we are complying with the requirements to make sure that we're not negatively impacting downstream. So as I go to the conclusion here, what I'd like to say is, hey, I've taken a lot of time. I'm looking at the design manual, I'm looking at the MZDO, looking at all the references. I brought in South Carolina DOT, I brought in an EPA, I've brought in different things to try to look at a good way to compare everything. And what it all boils down to is both the design manual and the MZDO through its references, both of them speak to and address better site design, best management practices. I showed you that. They all pretty much talk about the exact same thing. Water quality is a big deal, and they both talk to that, and the maximum extent practicable. So down below, if you see down on the lower part of that, that's one of the questions that I asked in the beginning. So what problem does the design manual solve that the MZDO doesn't? And pretty much what I came up with was, I mean, it provides further BMP consideration for developments and construction, which may directly, and that's again, within a half mile, discharge stormwater runoff to impaired waterways. However, the city already has in its development agreements and its PDDs and other contractual vehicles that we have out there, ways of dealing with impaired waters. If there's an impaired water within the area of a development or a construction site, there's ways to deal with that. So I think we're already there. So if anything, it provides a, maybe a little bit more stringent look. I think it should be a consideration that we bring in to our developments, not necessarily a full-on requirement. So the recommendations, the next slide. We looked at several different things. The first one there is probably the biggest one. Adopt and amend being the key word here, sections from the design manual to include Chapter 3 minimum control requirements. And again, that's for projects and developments that are close to these impaired waters. Not everything's going to be close to these impaired waters. So by the time, if something is 20 miles away from an impairment, by the time that water got to or close to that impairment, what else has already contributed to that? There is no way for us to say that our project, our development is the only thing contributing to that. We have to be careful with that as well. So there's other things that are contributing to that. But I think if it's within a half mile, I think it's reasonable to say, yes, let's look at it a little bit deeper. Let's look at it a little bit more with the BMPs and how we're going to control the stormwater. The next four down below, I'd recommended including the Jasper County Stormwater Management Design Manual, just as another reference that our design folks can take a look at, including in the section supplemental regulations in the MZDO, SCDHEC Regulation 72309, that deals with designated watersheds. It's a designated watershed because there's already been identified impaired waters, and there's a total maximum daily load for contaminants that are already in there and such. So again, for areas that are close to these, or for projects and developments that are close to these areas, we need to look at it a little bit more carefully. I also said, recommended in the MZDO, right up front, section 4.9, that's the stormwater section, that we utilize the South Carolina DOT definition of maximum extent practical. That is, in my mind, the most concise and clear and well laid out definition that I've seen thus far in my research. And then the final thing, there's add a statement for minimum quality standards, which basically says permanent water quality control should be designed to meet all or to meet any other additional watershed or site-specific water quality requirements. So then the last thing that you see on this slide is, the other question that I asked up front, is the design manual applicable to Hardeeville? And I would think yes, I think it is, but it's got to be amended for our jurisdiction. And if this is approved and we move forward on this, then my next steps would be to get with the consultants that, are out there to work this and say, okay, how do we amend this to best work for Hardeeville?
Let me ask a question, John.
Yes, sir.
So before we pass on the MZDO, should these things be considered?
So these four that I pointed out here, kind of already loaded them into, you already had seen, I think on the last one, we told you, hey, we're going to add this blurb about all applications got to comply with the, the design manual and such. So you saw that one. Well, these four here, we went ahead, I put complete behind it. Maybe that's not the best word to say, but yesterday in that draft, we went ahead and they're highlighted. All those things that I call out right here are in that now. So I think you'll get a copy of that as well, so you can see.
So we don't have it yet, right?
You don't have it in this package, but I think you'll get that.
We tried to put it on the screen, it was It was having trouble loading, but
We have it on, we can put it on the screen.
Yeah, we can put it on the screen. But we do have copies and it has been amended for your consideration.
Yeah,
Okay,
With these.
with those four, yeah.
all right.
I think, I think overall, the point of this is that we shouldn't just blindly receive this design manual and say, okay, City of Hardyville is going to comply with this. I think there's things in, well, I know that there are things in this design manual from jurisdictions throughout the East Coast. We're talking Maryland, New Jersey, and such. Maryland and New Jersey probably have a lot of different aspects when it comes to stormwater than perhaps we do down here. We have to be careful with that as to how we look at that. So I think the next logical step is for us to go a little bit further now and say, okay, present to you what would be the amended version of this that we would use in Hardyville, and that's sort of what I would recommend. Okay, thank you. So, open to questions or anything you might have?
Thank you, John.
Yes.
Okay,
Excellent presentation.
thank you.
Yes, I don't think I need to review the source documents.
Okay. They're here for you if you like, sir.
That's what we have you for.
Okay. Roger,
Don't
sir.
send them to us.
Thank you.
Every one of them. So with that, and we do have it up on the screen, and, so obviously it was changed. Exactly, John did it, based on his presentation and review and working with Katie and I. So, and we have sent that on to the consultant. She has that information as well. So all that's been done. So having said all that, we're happy to answer any other questions we can for you on that. But all in all, we'd like to be able to take this to city council in January if you see fit to give us a recommendation.
All right, so I submitted to you over a course of several weeks comments on 4 sections. And have we addressed those, or do we
We
wanna
addressed
run through them
everything
now?
that we could. And I don't have the breakdown precisely, but we did address everything that we could. There were certain things that we could not change based on either state law or in dealing with the attorney. But we did incorporate all of yours and spent time meeting on them. I think Katie and I spent a good time at the conference table working on those and making sure we're doing the appropriate thing.
All
So,
right, can we spend a couple of minutes and just go through them and tell me how we've addressed them? So the first one starts out on section 2, and we talk about bicycles on sidewalks in bicycle lanes. But there are lots of newer forms of motorized transportation, such as, these electric scooters and skateboards, and I'm just curious
which
if we
page
need
you're
to have
on?
something that talks about them. Do they follow the same rules as a bicycle or not?
Which page are you on?
I am on page 8 of section, page 6 of section 2, the A and B paragraph there. So where it talks about,
yes, motorized is motorized, whether it's an electric motor or anything else. Motorized is considered different than a bicycle. An electric bike is considered different than a pedal bike.
so,
What the word is.
okay,
So,
Manual.
so are electric bikes allowed on sidewalks
No,
then?
no,
No, they're not.
no.
Okay, I didn't see that anywhere.
If it says motorized, no motorized is allowed, then no motorized is allowed.
Okay.
We don't have to,
hey,
Because there's
Yeah,
new technology.
there's new technology all the time, so that,
Yeah, that was what I was asking
so
about.
if it says no motorized, then that's what it is.
So,
it would seem to me that II is moot on motorized bicycles versus other bicycles.
It says non-motorized.
Generally shared with pedestrians and other non-motorized.
In II.
II.
Non-motorized,
Blah, 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 blah. Where feasible.
and a lot of that takes place on not what's stated in the ordinance, but as we are enforcing it and everything. And that is certainly something that we monitor and as we're building our code enforcement team are certainly aware of.
Okay, that takes care of that. Page 9, section 2. Right at the top, we talk about, and let's see, what's the rest of that? We talk about awnings being a glossy finish. There are some awnings covers where they use glass. And are those allowed, prohibited, or it's not really that important?
We when we're in the SRC process, we're looking at it, we're reviewing it, and we're considering all aspects of the ordinance and everything else that's going on. Obviously, as we're moving into White Hardy Boulevard, because that is a downtown area. So that is a case by case. We're not going to call out every material, but we're going to look at it and see what.
All right, so you're not going to preclude or encourage glass-type awnings. You're going to consider it on a case-by-case
on how it fits
basis.
into the area, community,
All right.
adjacent properties.
Okay, now I jump to section 3. There is a table that begins on page 3, and that's where the bulk of my comments are as to allowed, not allowed, those sorts of things. So if I go down to domestic animal shelters, which is under accessory uses,
It's an accessory for residential use.
That is
It's
an
not-
accessory use. It's not a main it's an accessory to a residential use.
so, but I can have an animal shelter in my backyard?
No, that is a kennel. That's the difference in operating a kennel or having a kennel for your pets that you have. It has to be of a certain size and everything. Not a kennel as in a big operating, but you
So
have
a domestic animal shelter,
is
in
not
my parlance, is a doghouse?
as it pertains to an accessory dwelling unit. Yes, sir. That is not a main principal use. It cannot be the principal use of the property. We've gone through many other examples, many other ordinances, and that is how it's worded and that's how it's handled. But no, you're not going to have an animal shelter as an accessory use to a residence.
Domestic animal shelter, kind of stuff, alarm bells.
you could have,
Planning dictionary.
you could have a stable for a
No.
horse.
No, you can't.
That is not as it's
Comes later.
defined in the
It's a
planner's
domestic
dictionary. That is not allowed. It is just for pets and everything.
Chickens, ducks, geese, cats, dogs.
No chickens, no good ducks, no geese.
If it's a pet.
Not a farm animal, but a domestic animal.
Domestic animals being dogs and cats, guinea pigs, whatever.
No, no pigs, no livestock. No farm
guinea
animals.
pigs.
Guinea pigs, yes.
All right. Accessory uses, the last item was tennis courts. And I could not understand why you wouldn't allow a tennis court on a big enough lot. There are people that have tennis courts in their really nice houses. Not me, but
Then those typically are going to be zoned differently than what we're
they're not gonna, you
including.
don't think they're gonna be residential?
they're not gonna be those districts. It's typically going to be something larger, and if the lot is large, then we can, work it out. Yeah,
Could we call it conditional or something, or approval?
we can look into that.
I mean, I just,
What would you,
House, it's not going to count. That's the thing, like, so this is looking at accessory uses outside
I understand that,
of, so.
but there are lots of people who have tennis courts in their
So
backyards.
they would probably live in a lot that was zoned community preservation at that point, because the lot sizes are different out in those areas.
what we can do is we can put a condition, on it for lots of a certain size, if the lot is large enough to accommodate a house and a tennis court.
I mean, I
that.
would leave it to you to say, yeah, the lot's big enough. You're bouncing a ball around is not gonna keep your neighbor from sleeping at night, but, you know.
My lot is big enough right now that I could, hang on.
You have too much lot, you would have too much lot coverage on your lot. So you don't have room for a tennis court. Because we do consider all of those things as people are building their homes. It's big enough, it would fit, but you would not be able to meet your setbacks and your lot coverage and that kind of thing. So, you building a tennis court?
I think I could run on that slope down to the lake.
By guppy, a pickleball court would fit.
Oh,
Might
no, it
have some
wouldn't.
Alligators helping you
Not
with
in
that
my
choice.
lot.
All right,
Okay.
page 4 in the same table. Under Recreation Gun Club, we listed S for DMU and DGC, and I thought, huh? A gun club in downtown? That, you know, I understand it says S, but that's, I can't imagine we would even consider it.
By putting it in a special exception, if you did have some unusual scenario, such as where some of the warehouses we're talking about going, but it's very close to downtown and still may have that kind of zoning, it would have to go through a special exception. That means everything would have to be approved and impacts on everything. So is it probably going to happen? I can't say, but there would be many restrictions on that. It's not like someone could just come build a gun club in the downtown area.
All right, page 6, we're down to horses and other equine under, whatever that section is. Again, we preclude it, and it's back to the thing, is the lot big enough to have a horse? And I guess you're saying, if you're in a residential area, you're not gonna have 3 acres to have a horse.
No, sir. It needs to be zoned something else other than residential if you're going to have horses or other farm animals.
I just, as you drive down 17, right, there's some horse stuff there. Now, I understand that's probably not residential. That's
Probably not in the city.
probably not even in the city.
Yes, probably, yeah.
All right. Let's see. That does, oh, there's one more in section 3, way down on page 10. We'll say here, open storage. This is the open yard used for sale, rental, or storage of new used salvage materials. And the first thing that jumped off the page to me was the burning trash pile that we had outside of Sun City.
That was a very different use. That wasn't permitted through the city. That was in another jurisdiction.
I understand that. I don't want
No,
one in
this is not going to allow any of that.
It does not.
It does not. It says burning of materials or products on premises is prohibited.
Well, it wasn't burning until it caught on fire.
Well, they're not, and there's there are other things that
Well,
require barriers and screening, and that was not regulated. We have regulations for, they have to go through an SRC, and we have, the fire marshal sits on that, and that will not, confirm that that will not occur
Yeah, but,
our outdoor storage.
you know, once you approve it, Then Joey's responsible to keep it from becoming so large.
We have code enforcement.
No, outdoor storage is regulated by the fire code as well as the building code. There are certain parameters on height, width, length, as well as access to those. So as long as we have adopted the state's LLR guidelines on building and fire codes, we basically regulate that according to them.
All right, so no burning trash pile outside of Sun City again.
Trash piles aren't allowed.
Correct.
Well, that was,
That one was an anomaly, but no, that one got way out of hand.
I know.
But those would have to be regulated. There are certain other things that would have to go there, as well as certain barriers that would have to go to the soils too, for make sure there are no penetration to the soil or infiltration to the soil.
Yeah, I just obviously don't ever want to see another one of those.
And we don't either. We're
I
making sure
understand
that's
that.
in there.
I just want to make sure somebody can't do it.
I've got a question on that. On burning of materials or products on the premises. When a developer is clearing,
This is a special code for a special use on this. These are use standards. That is part of their site review, and that's a whole different burning ordinance that we have in place. And
So this
that's
would
just
not
been amended. That is through the burning ordinance and the fire marshal.
okay. And no junkyards.
No, sir.
All right, now let's see here. I'm on to section 4, page 5. And my comments on table 4.3. I question whether there should be something in here that says mixed use. Or do you consider mixed use commercial?
You got that one?
For mixed use for open space, we will calculate it based on the use. So if there's a residential area, they have to have that percentage in the residential area. If it's commercial, they'll have to have that percentage. If it's both residential and commercial, like live work, we're going to go with the more stringent requirement. That's SRC does all that.
And that is a very typical and standard way of doing things throughout our industry. You go by the use when you're looking at those things,
Oh,
not
so-
by the zoning.
So if it was mixed use, it would be 30% requirement. Okay.
Whichever is more stringent.
Hey, that kind of came to mind as I was driving through Riverport, looking at where we wanted to change some things there. All right, let's see, let me jump over to page 7. Oh, it was just, we didn't have the word foot spelled out in a couple of places there.
It is.
You've probably taken care of that already.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Tree protection, page 21, item D on the tree survey, and this is just a question as opposed to a change, I'm saying. Lots of folks do aerial tree surveys. We hear that all the time with things that come before us. This is probably a John question. Is there a way that somebody can tell how many 8-inch diameter trees I have by looking at an aerial survey?
And that is something that is being cleared up as we're moving through this ordinance. And yes, that has been a practice in the past. There's going to be certain situations where that may be a practice, but yes, for the general rule, you're going to have a more stringent tree survey requirement. So yes, we're not going to rely on just solely aerials for that kind of thing. There's going to have to be some double checking based on recent projects.
Well, I mean, I go to some of these properties that come before us, for PDDs, and I wouldn't want to be the one to walk through them. They're pretty darn dense, and so I was just,
We do work
an
with them.
aerial survey doesn't, I don't think, give you what you want.
we're working through that and working with the individual sites and,
It would only be for pine plantation sites. Anyway.
yes, pine plantations is where that was being used for in the past. But once you get down to those stands of hardwoods or those, around those wetland areas, there's gonna have to be some more investigation.
Okay. Even less desirable to trade jeeps through. All right, I'm on to section 7, page 4. You say in the third line that you're gonna tell owners of property that come before us by mail 7 days before the planning commission hearing. And I would like to, can we change that to 15? I don't trust the mail service to necessarily get me a notice within 7 days. Plus, if somebody takes issue with it, they ought to have a minute or two to arrange a revolt among their neighbors to come talk to us.
We've studied this and looked through, various jurisdictions and various practices from around, not just our area, but around. One thing we want to be careful of is not extending that process out for our purposes, for the developer's purposes, for your purposes. We do believe that with all of the different hearings and options, that 7 days is appropriate for before this planning commission. We get it out as soon as we can. We're going to have the applicants are reaching out to them throughout our process. We do believe this system will work better. And I stand by that 7 day. I think that if you add the 15 day, we're pushing it way out, and you're going to have a bottleneck of these cases and people. Plus, like I said, we do have 2 public hearings at council. We have workshops. We have this planning commission. We have lots of opportunities for them to get in front of you
So
folks.
by giving a 7-day notice, you're really pushing pushback out to a forum after we've made a recommendation.
As the state law is written, public hearing notifications have to go out, not for a public meeting, which this is a public meeting, but for the public hearing. As our ordinances are set up, the public hearing is at city council level.
So again, somebody who has an issue with something that's been proposed to us, we're not going to hear them before we're asked to make a recommendation to council.
I'm just telling you how we put it together. You can make a recommendation to this, on this, but that is how we looked at it. And like I said, we didn't just look at what we do, we looked universally, so.
All right, fellow commissioners,
I,
am I alone in this?
no, because I remember we had an issue with, on what's now Riverton Point,
I was thinking.
the road going into Riverton Point, we had an issue where a developer came in and there was an individual had a really valid complaint that he found out about the meeting from someone else because he did not receive a mail notice.
Yes, and these weren't in place. These rules weren't in place. They're not currently in place. They will be with the adoption of the new ordinance. That we have everything spelled out, and that we're going to have.
Well,
So the one I was thinking about was that tract we approved by the Marble Place. There was a church and several houses along whatever that road is. And those folks, the same thing. Anyway,
well, I understand what you're saying. But where is the backup going to come if we push it out to 15 days?
The 45-day clock.
Yes, we.
Okay, we have, our meeting is scheduled October 15th. where's the backup gonna come if you send that notice out on October 1st?
The way it's set up right now, they're gonna be getting notice well before you get your packet. We just don't have the staff or the everything we need in place. But if you want to put it in there, if you want to make that recommendation, we understand that. And we're not gonna argue this with you, but.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around,
We have and right now, even by the addition of the workshops, which are a wonderful thing, and we're very happy to have these workshops, but our processes and our getting us scheduled and being on time and getting everything to the clerk when appropriate and out to the public, it is a challenge, and we're spending a lot of time on it. Not a problem, but it just does create more need for more bodies on our end. So I'm happy to move this forward, but I also want to be considerate of everyone's timelines and everyone's,
okay, so now I think I understand. The backup is in your office. It's putting a.
it's
putting a
in the
backup on-
process. I'm
it's
not
putting a
necessarily
backup on your processes.
on the process for
Okay.
the whole project.
I understand. I don't know. I got mixed feelings.
And I do understand in the past, we have not had all of this in place. We haven't had the applicants doing this. We haven't had that requirement or that you be able to say, I'm sorry, you didn't notify, we're not listening to this today. You will have that in the future.
Again, I'm concerned that if someone has an issue, that we have a chance to understand it before we make a recommendation to council, only to have, the community come in and say, those dummies on planning commission didn't think about us. I mean, that's where I am with it.
If you're gonna, okay, I'm gonna offend you on this one. If we're gonna put more burden on the planning office, then I'd like to see the burden say, get our packet to us sooner.
Okay, and I'm not saying there's a burden to planning. That's not
No,
what I was
but-
saying. I'm saying you're
Yeah.
extending the process and you're adding people and processes
Yeah.
that we would have to add to. And it does make a difference on our day-to-day operations around here.
So
So I'm looking at the city-wide. I'm not just looking
when
at
I say
us.
burden, I mean, we're putting more work on staff.
You're putting more work on staff and, as I mentioned, a burden on the process and everything.
Yeah.
So it's bigger than just the planning staff.
I think what we've got here is a solution to a problem that exists right now. Whether it's 7 days or 15 days, if the neighbor gets a notification that shows up in the mail that tells him something's going to go on, he's got a chance here to at least come up and bring, he doesn't have to put together a big presentation or marshal the troops to come in with him. He can at least come in, I'm the neighbor, have you thought about this? This is how it's going to affect me, that kind of stuff. It gives him a chance, is the way I see it.
Right
So
now,
I don't have a problem with the 7 days. I mean,
that's
15
what-
days would be great, but it seems a little unreasonable because people are going to forget about the meeting if you put it too far out.
and, because right now, there is no requirement,
Exactly.
okay. I can live with the 7 days. If it doesn't work, then we can
We can always
come
amend it if it
back,
becomes-
right?
It is a dynamic document, and you can amend it or ask for a text amendment at any point in time.
All right.
I'm definitely satisfied with the 7 days. If they didn't get it in 7, what's the odds of them getting it in 30? And to create,
Your Christmas card's going to be late.
not unusual.
Thank you.
On the section dealing with initial master plans, page 11, item 12, narrative addressing, and it talks about what you want in the initial master plan. I think we should include some information on sidewalks, lighting. You say that comes later, but
No, that comes in through the open space calculations in the plan development district as well as the,
so you're
Master.
saying that in Roman 12A, sidewalks and lighting are part of the open space requirement?
Yes, sir.
You're not going to have a lighting.
You're not going to have a lighting plan at that point, yes.
Never seen one.
But the sidewalks, yes. Lighting plans come at the development permit time and are approved through the whole SRC team.
I've seen master plans come in without sidewalks.
But as we're refining this document, we are now requiring them. So
Yeah.
that is,
Okay, just a comment, okay?
Can we put the word sidewalks in?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, because if it isn't written, it isn't happening.
We'll just put open space.
We'll put the connectivity plan, because we don't want to limit it to sidewalks.
Okay.
We want to have the ability to do pathways and other things, so
I'm cool.
connectivity plan we can add.
We address it.
Yeah.
All right. On page 16, closeout procedures, 3, just in the paragraph, doesn't utility infrastructure ultimately get deeded to the utility? We talk about infrastructure being deeded to the city, and we list sanitary in there, but isn't that ultimately deeded to Beaufort Jasper Sewer and Water Authority?
yeah, this, we need to say to the public, because, I mean, they're different agencies, but that we were just being all-inclusive. It's not that literal, but yes, we can clear up that language.
It just says to the city, and you're saying maybe to the city ought to say public.
To the public agencies,
Agency,
appropriate public agency.
All right. All right.
Trust me, we're not going to take any sewer from anybody.
I would think not. Either in drawings or other forms. Under 7.9 adjustments, number A, just 7.9.a, would you, as the planning director, have the authority to increase the density of a project?
No.
Once it's out there the first time, it can never get bigger. It can potentially get smaller on your direction,
Yes.
or something like that, okay. Just a question on 23, number 2, where we're talking about actions by the zoning board of appeals. Is there a time limit on how quick they have to act? I mean, you know, we know that we're told we have to resolve things within 45 days.
In certain things, it depends on which process they're going through. Appeals is different than variances, and variance is different from special exceptions. But they don't have, they're the final decision-making body, and you're not. So that's the difference. That's just the way, they're a quasi-judicial body, and they do not have to forward anything to council. So that's the difference. And state law is looking at, with your 45 days, into keeping the process moving.
So the answer is no, Board of Zoning Appeals isn't under requirements like that.
They
Okay.
have, for appeals, yes, they have requirements through the court system, but that is mainly what it is.
Under 712A, I just was curious about enforcement of violations to specifically PDD agreements. I understand MZDO outside of PDD, code enforcement gets in the mix. If there's an issue in a PDD violating what was agreed to, does code enforcement have the authority to go after them?
Plan Development District is a zoning district, yes.
Okay. With that, I'm done. Anybody else have any comments, questions as they went through this another time? Okay. In that case, what do you want us to do?
Would like to have a motion to approve as amended, and we have, certainly have the record for everything we talked about today, including the stormwater element. If that's your choice, or if you want to add any other conditions to it. We would, like, as I mentioned, we'd like to take this to city council in January. Maybe, probably second meeting in January, but we want to get it ready.
Do we have a motion to approve as amended and discussed?
I make a motion that we approve as amended and discussed.
Second.
Move it forward.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Break.
Break. You're right, it's been an hour and 20 minutes.
I think the applicants will like a break too.
I guess I could go do the same.
potentially the future exit number 3. So, Chris,
Morning.
good morning.
I'm actually going to cover items A, B, and C in this presentation today. This is for the rezoning of the former Tetra property located near Exit 5 within and adjacent to the Hardyville Commerce Park. It's a total of a little over 38 acres. The applicant's requesting a rezoning of the properties to light industrial to incorporate this property into the overall Gateway Commerce Park development. Here's kind of a aerial shot. Sorry, it's a little kind of blurry on this one, but you can see you have, this is all limited industrial here. You have Riverport PDD back here, limited industrial back here, and then these are zone mixed use and general commercial. So they're kind of, this will kind of tie it all in together here. And then here's an example of all the zoning. The light purple is Riverport PDD. Oh, sorry. Riverport PDD is up here. Then you have the dark purple, which is limited industrial here. And then this is zone general commercial. And then this the little mixed use piece down here.
Mixed use is the Tetra, and the red is commercial.
Sorry. And go ahead. Did you have a question?
Yeah, they just want to tie the
It's gonna get all
the
tied.
limited industrial together, looks like.
Yeah, it's gonna like pull it all together in the middle there. And then right now, this is Prosper Parkway. This is that spine road that cuts through. The end here, what you're looking straight into the Tetra property. It kind of ends right before the property. I don't know if you've had a chance to go back there, but they have it paved. They now have it paved pretty much all the way through, coming from that White Hardy Boulevard side.
Yeah, you have to sneak around the tape.
You do have to sneak around the tape, and there was a random tire in the middle of the road the other day we had to go around. But so right now the sites are currently zoned for mixed use and general commercial, and they're trying to get it all changed to limited industrial. The use is consistent with the land use element of the comprehensive plan and the economic development element of the comprehensive plan. And once again, you would access the parcels via the Commerce Park Spine Road that's now known as Prosper Parkway. Right now, we're in step 1 of the process. If you approve, it'll go on to City Council for consideration and approval. Staff does suggest that the Planning Commission recommend approval as it does meet the MZDO ordinance. It does fall in line with the Commerce Park Master Plan and the recommendations of the comp plan. And if you guys do make a motion, you'll need to make 3 separate motions to approve, and I have that up here for you as well.
Okay.
I have the applicant here if you guys have any questions.
As a question, do they have any idea what type of,
It would, Kevin?
what type of businesses we're looking at? Just,
Good morning, I'm Kevin Ferrugio with ROI Real Estate. Yeah, the property, just to give you a little history, the applicant we represent purchased property to the north and to the south of this property about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's kind of working towards an assemblage and working with the city. So there's acreage here, which is currently a phase 1 of what we're calling Gateway Commerce Park. It's some light industrial development. There's 2 buildings that are under construction right now. They're going to be sitting right here on the I-95 frontage. One's 330,000 square feet and one's 115,000 square feet or 118,000 square feet. And they're spec buildings, designed for warehouse distribution. And the idea is that they're going to, this would be phase 2 ultimately. They also own the southern track, which would be a future phase as well. So you kind of develop from north to south.
so it looks like distribution warehouses.
Yeah, most likely, yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, I drove through that Sunday, and I think I saw the 2 buildings going up as I was driving down that unimproved road.
Right, yes, so there's a frontage road here that construction traffic's using, and then the main access and entrance is through Prosper Parkway. And as Chris mentioned, right now the road ends here. Obviously, the idea is for it to continue and extend further south to serve the projects.
Any other questions, Steve?
Oh, no,
Rick? Jeff?
I don't know if it's related or not, but the impact of the entrance, what you're using to haul in the dirt there coming through Hummingbird Lane, it is destroyed
Yeah.
and it's only gonna get worse. We have potholes this deep now, and nobody seems to have any concern.
The city, Jody McMahon, our capital projects project manager, is certainly working on that. We are looking to all the different resources, including ROI and several others, as well as Public Works, and we're looking to find the best solutions for that and prevent it from happening in the future. I hope that helps answer that a little bit. But we are very aware of not only
Me too.
potholes, but also
would
of
be.
the mud and everything on the roadways and
They're
the,
keeping the pad down. They're putting the rock pad down. They probably need a stop sign because somebody's trying to drive it to consider that as a yield, and anybody coming down the main road is supposed to stop for them. A very hazardous environment right now.
we'll pass that along to all of them.
Is the city responsible for Hummingbird Lane then?
The city did accept that right of way a few years ago, as well as that of Prosper Way.
All right, so the city needs to take care of your ruts, I guess, Rick.
The city is working with getting the right people to help us with it, yes.
I understand that all of this is going to tie in with exit 3. Exit 3 is a long way off. Long way off. So once these buildings get built and they start being occupied, we're going to be putting a lot of trucks on 17, right? I'm just, because it's, exit 3 is not going to happen tomorrow, is what I'm getting at. Okay.
Maybe not. Yeah. So, would the expected egress and ingress be Prosper Parkway? Is that the thought for now?
Correct. And there is a chance that that frontage road becomes, could serve as well to kind of down into the site to kind of disperse traffic as well. So, there is an easement that runs along there, but, that's to be determined.
Yeah, because putting a tremendous amount of traffic on this new Prosper Way is just going to dump everybody right in downtown Hardyville.
There's no plans to put an entrance off from 17?
Sir, yeah, there's 2 entrances,
No.
there's the main entrance.
I'm saying off 17, there's no plans to do an entrance and exit off 17?
The only, you've got I-95 basically adjacent, so, and you've got the rail that runs to the west.
Yep.
So, your only access points are here, which again, I
That's right,
think,
never mind.
Yep.
We're coming down.
Yeah, that's 95, not 17,
Or
okay.
paving across 95 and the railroad tracks to get down to 17 on
Yeah,
Harrisburg. And that's
no, that
probably a
won't work.
long way off too. So, okay, Rick, anything else? Jeff?
I have nothing.
Okay, nor do I.
okay,
So, do we have a motion to approve, amend,
okay.
or reject?
I move that we recommend approval of parcel 1-030002000-002-008 from current commercial to
Limited and
general, from current zoning to, limited industrial. We could do 3 motions, so.
Yep.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Someone else can do the second one.
Jeff?
I move that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the proposed zoning map amendment from mixed use to limited industrial for parcel 030-00-02-032.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
You're on a roll, Jeff.
I move the Planning Commission recommend approval of the proposed zoning map amendment for mixed use to limited industrial for parcel 030-00-02-033.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All 3 motions carry.
That was easy.
Yeah.
Didn't sound that way.
Harder to say it than do it, right?
It is.
All right. The next item on the agenda is considering a modification to the PDD amendment for Riverport. Brandon, I guess you've got this one.
Yes, sir. Again, good morning. I guess we're still morning. Look forward to continuing that conversation about Prosper Parkway as it affects Riverport and Exit 3 and all of that conversation. And yes, you're right. It is a couple of years down the road, but Exit 3 is a lot closer now than it has been. And
Oh, yeah.
they are planning to do it with the widening of I-95, and that is starting.
To let next December,
Yes.
Oh,
So
they pushed it next December?
upper back. The plan is for next December.
so
I thought it was this December.
here I am again with this thing. I don't know why I have to turn it off and on, but I do. What did I do? Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm having a day. Me and technology. So this is Riverport Plan Development District. They're asking for the second amended and restated version of the Plan Development District. At the same time, they're also looking at amending the development agreement, and that's going to be presented at council same time. We are talking about Riverport Parkway, Exit 3, Purriesburg Road, all that comes down to 17 to the south. We're 5,136 acres. It is a mixed-use development with residential, industrial, commercial, civic. The project siting, it is this yellow project. It goes all the way from south down by Alligator Alley, all the way back up to above Honey Hill Road on the west side of the city. Current conditions, phase 1 and 2 are being developed right now down in the south area where waste management as well as all of the other buildings are, and Riverport Parkway has been built to a certain extent. And also we have Fire Station 84, the Hardyville Fire Station down there. So if you haven't been out there, construction is happening constantly, and we're looking forward to it. This is very close to the Savannah port, and that is what we are learning is a big draw for the areas serving that port. Want to go ahead and throw up the plans for Exit 3 because, you know, every day it's getting a little closer, and so that's going to show you what's going to happen. It's one of the versions. I don't know if it's the actual final version, but they keep growing, and Exit 3 will be built as they start with the widening. They're starting at 0 and moving towards Exit 8. This was originally approved in 2009, amended in 2013. As I showed you, their phase 1 and 2 are currently under development. As the need for industrial development has occurred, and the construction of Exit 3, the owners of Riverport have determined that some of those land uses around at Exit 3 and above Exit to the north of Exit 3 do need to be adjusted somewhat. Also, we were looking at the, as we mentioned, that roadway that runs from exit 3 back over to 17, which will be Prosper Parkway. We're looking at a number of different things. Formerly, above exit 3, for the most part, was primarily residential. They are putting in a conversion process here. They're requesting that so that they can have that limited industrial need, to fill that need. They're also talking about a dedication of an additional 3 acres of land for a second public safety site that will be located north of I-95 at a mutually agreed upon
I assume that's another firehouse.
Yes.
I
And
thought.
fire and typically they have a fire and police substation, like 84. We also cleaned up some of the things that we've been doing in a lot of the PDDs, removing those MZDO exemptions and spelling them out so that we are very clear on what's happening in there. So that's the conceptual master plan as it's being proposed currently. And the analysis is, as we mentioned, the city is very much looking forward to that, not only the public safety site, but that roadway connecting between Riverport Parkway and 17. Comprehensive plan does recommend connectivity between parcels as appropriate. And as I said, this could be considered with a development agreement. This does meet all aspects of everything. And there were so many things on the comp plan that we could have quoted on this, just supporting the development of Riverport. You know the process, and our recommendation is for you to recommend approval. And I'm happy to answer any questions. And Lamar Mercer with the applicant is here, and we'll be happy to answer any further questions as well.
All right, starting on my right. Rick, anything? Jeff?
So let me understand, some of the initial stuff around the exit 3 area was originally in the PDD as residential?
Above that was typically commercial, right around exit 3, but above it was more residential, and they want to move that business park commercial up a little bit.
So they're pushing the residential into what would be called the mixed-use area, I guess? Okay.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the area we were kind of talking about, and when I drove out there, I just didn't see that as being a great place for a bunch of new residential in lieu of all the warehousing and stuff that we're planning around there, that maybe it was a good idea 15 years ago, but now, you know, the residential seems to be moving, you know, East Argent Tract 1 and 2, now we got the Morgan Tract. And it's probably a better place for residential than in here. There's not much up there now. There's, you know, some private residences. But this is probably a good change for us. So,
I have nothing else.
Yeah, he
No, I-
summarized that very well.
I looking at it, it runs all the way down to Alligator Alley. Well, just below Alligator Alley, we've got another development that we approved for warehousing. I think you're gonna see that whole corridor be distribution centers, and I'm not against that. The more business we can draw from Georgia, the better.
But, and it, to be fair about it, not transparent, I mean, it still could end up as residential north of 95.
yeah, you've got an option the way you've,
Right. As, you know, as you move north of Church Street, it's residential. So didn't want to mislead anybody. It just gives an opportunity. And frankly, you know, throughout this environmental permitting process, there's a little bit better tracks to site bigger businesses on.
all right, anybody else? Okay. When I looked at this, we're opening up the PDD for a modification by doing this. One thing that I found as being a deficiency in the PDD now is the adjacency to Route 17. That most recent warehouse in Section 1, I think it is like lays on the street. And I understand that the PDD says 50-foot buffer.
Oh, that's that new one.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, that really isn't enough for these monster 50-foot tall buildings, that we really ought to have a larger setback for those, a larger buffer. It's too late to do anything about that warehouse, but I think even if we can't do anything about it here, in the future, we need to be thinking about presentation.
And you can, as these IMPs come in for this development, which they will have to do, that is your time when you can address those.
Right, I mean, I just personally saw that as a real error on our part.
Yeah, I watched that going up, and I think the way they positioned it was, that was the only way that they could do it.
It was a tough piece to deal with.
Yeah.
But acknowledging that, and there's landscaping that's been added back in the area and planted.
I know, but
So
that's a
it's acknowledged.
50-foot building laying on the road essentially, and it's really kind of not a great
It's
sight
not
line.
as ugly as the
When you
storage
think about the
on
configuration, that was a
278.
odd one again, because of the configuration. of the building. That's kind of the rear of the building too, not to make that situation, not to excuse it, but think about going up the Parkway, because that really is the only area that touches 17. Going up the Parkway, or north, you'll be on Riverport Parkway, and you already can see how those buildings lay out front facing, right?
I just,
They'll be pushed back a little further. to
this
the
is something to
side.
think about in the future. I know there's nothing we can do about that building, and the rest of their parcel doesn't really front 17 per se. We've already approved other PDDs between Riverport and 95. There's 2 others we've approved in that general area. So that, other than that, I'm fine with the change. So, do we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve consideration of a planned development, a district amendment for Riverport Planned Development District. I gotta turn the page over. What is it? Yeah.
Right there.
5,136.83 acres.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that, if that's sufficient.
In favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Have a good day, Lamar.
Thank you, Lamar.
All right, now, we have consideration for an initial master plan for a multifamily property along Medical Center Drive. And I guess, Katie, you get the honors.
I don't usually get to sit back and watch everybody else present. This was nice. So, yes, you have an initial master plan proposal for a multifamily project located in the Coastal Land Tract PDD, which is near the hospital. The site is 26 acres and is adjacent to the hotels, the Hampton Inn, the Fairfield Inn, and Coastal Carolina Hospital on Medical Center Drive. So here's a aerial here showing the property outline, and then you have the hospital and the 2 hotels on Brooks Willis Drive here, and exit 8. It is currently vacant and undeveloped. Again, this is the parcel itself here, and then it is adjacent to these hotels. In your packet, you have the proposed master plan document. Shows the layout of the multifamily use right here, and then the proposed future commercial use directly adjacent to the Hampton Inn. There are 3 access points, 2 for the multifamily parcel and 1 for the commercial parcel proposed at this time. And then you'll see the sidewalks throughout. We have asked the applicant, and they have agreed to tie into this sidewalk that the city recently installed, so that the residents have a continuous pathway all the way down to the intersection of 278 and Medical Center Drive. So they'll be able to access the commercial uses. And we have the restaurants and the hotels right there, as well as the hospital.
Walk to Taco Bell.
Yep.
We said Starbucks.
We said Starbucks.
The maximum of 360 multifamily apartment units. Again, this is consistent with the land use element and the economic development elements of the comprehensive plan. It does encourage mixed-use developments, provides opportunity for housing in close proximity to the hospital, school, hotels, and I-95. Increased access to local employment opportunities. We're going to need those not only with the development in the Riverport and the 17 corridor, but also with the hospital and the school right there. And then reduce the overall commuting distance and costs for residents as the economic development element encourages. The proposed open space and connectivity plan, I already kind of touched on that. The PDD does require a 25-foot perimeter buffer that has been provided. They are exceeding the requirement for the setback from the internal road. And then the open space coastal land tract PDD requires a minimum of 50% for multifamily residential projects. This does exceed that requirement. There's no minimum for active open space in the PDD. So they are here for a recommendation to City Council, and then they'll go to City Council, followed by SRC for the site development permit. Based on the comprehensive plan and the coastal land tract PDD, staff does suggest that Planning Commission recommend approval as presented. And at this time, I'll invite Connor Blaney from Ward Edwards to come up and add anything else that he'd like to add.
Good morning, Connor Blaney with Ward Edwards Engineering. I'm the civil engineer behind this project. Thank you all for your time, and thank you, Katie, for an excellent summary of this. I think that really captures the essence of what's being proposed here in this initial master plan. The developer is Hill Point. They are a established entity with an existing products throughout the East Coast, primarily in multifamily complexes. With several under design and permitting directly in this area, including Beaufort and Jasper County. And hopefully this will help support the ever-growing need of additional residential uses here. The land plan is in the Coastal Land Tract PDD, conforms to that, but was laid out in a manner to hopefully promote and maximize interconnectivity and open space. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
How many total units?
360.
Anything else, Steve?
So, and these are looking to be workforce type, or workforce housing.
Hill Point specializes in a quality residential multifamily unit that has an aggressive price point to the market that they fall.
So basically, we're talking mom and dad, both working.
I'd have to defer to the developer.
No,
on the target markets.
Hear me through on this. So that's let's say 1.5 cars per unit. That's an awful lot of traffic that you're dumping out onto an already congested intersection.
So we have been talking to SCDOT about this, and with the widening of I-95, that intersection is going to be relocated and improved. They will be shifted down the way so that the signal will not be so close to that interstate, and that will help with the traffic flow. So this project is in mind, and it is going to, again, shift down the way.
When do you anticipate starting this project?
It's my understanding the developer would like to proceed with construction initiation upon approval. The approval process, especially with SCDEC right now, is taking close to a year. So at minimum, we're likely a year away.
So
So you got to start the design after we approve this, then you go to DHEC.
Yeah. So We're
So
looking
least
at
a year.
possibly starting within 18 to 24 months.
That would be the goal.
Exit 8 reconstruction, I'm going to be dust before that's completed. So I understand the reconstruction of 95 and exit 5 and exit 8 and exit 3, but that's a long way down the road. That's not going to come immediately. You're going to see people living here coming out through that intersection that's already congested. And I just have concerns that we need to look at possibly a different entrance and exit. Where it sits, I don't know how you would do that. But I'm concerned with traffic at that intersection.
And valid concerns, the future improvements, I mean, that's going to be great. That's going to help safety. It's going to help.
Oh, yeah, but
It's going
that's,
to help everything.
yeah, but like I say, that, I'm going to be dust before you see that.
The way this was laid out was there's only one way to access that property, and it's on Medical Center Drive. So we tried to propose multiple access points to alleviate the traffic, stay well under the maximum allowed density in the superseding PDD. And then we brought in a traffic engineer who studied the intersections. And all of these roads in that intersection is owned and maintained by SCDOT. So they're a party to the review and will ensure that all proposed development not only conforms to their standards, but adheres to both existing conditions as well as planned future improvements.
Okay. I don't get warm fuzzies on it, that's all. I think it's a great development, don't get me wrong.
It's a good location. Rick?
I agree with it. That is definitely a valid concern, the safety. There's a lot of accidents at that light now as we speak. There was probably 3 this week. But DOT is gonna do their job and we'll try to do ours.
Couple of questions. Where does the stormwater for this property go?
What is shaded in blue on the exhibit is proposed as stormwater BMPs, most likely to be wet detention. You can see a large hatched area bisecting the two properties. Those are isolated delineated wetlands. Though that is the low point of the property. So we tried to primarily locate the stormwater ponds prior to the collection of any stormwater runoff in the wetlands.
And you have 2 hotels adjacent to it, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So how do you get the water past the hotels?
Yeah, when I looked at the flow arrows, the flow is southbound.
So what we're planning on doing is designing the ponds to collect any runoff from the proposed development. And if it's not going there naturally, we will collect it through means of inlets to route it to those ponds, which will discharge to the wetlands at a rate less than that of an undeveloped existing condition state. Then they will follow the existing flow paths that go through the wetlands into Medical Center Drive's stormwater infrastructure that continues out to the west.
You're saying that the wetland is not going to spill over into the 2 hotels.
No.
There's some other way you have to get the water away.
Yes.
Okay.
And where is that?
The areas of the blue highlighted 3 large ponds.
Right.
Yeah.
All the runoff from the proposed development, all the impervious coverage will be routed to those ponds.
Understand, but when
Those ponds will be bermed up such that the water will stage up high into those ponds and then discharge into the wetlands at a rate less than that of an undeveloped condition. So those ponds will rise and retain the stormwater.
all right, so we get a big storm, ponds fill, runs into the wetlands. Where does it go when it comes out of the wetland? Not on my hotel, I hope.
No, what it does is it actually, it heads down south to Medical Center Drive. There's existing ditches and
You're
infrastructure.
saying it's coming down here somehow?
Yes, it does flow in that direction naturally.
Oh.
There's something that's been engineered into this as they were building the hotels to be able to manage all this anticipated stormwater.
Yes, we're not proposing to redirect any stormwater. We're proposing to treat and hold the stormwater to then release it along its existing flow paths at a rate less than it exists today.
Okay. The only other thing I have is the traffic study in the conclusions recommended left turn lanes at driveways 2 and 3. It didn't say specifically, is the left turn lane on Medical Center Drive, or is it in the road that empties out onto Medical Center Drive?
So it's actually a turn lane that's incorporated into Medical Center Drive that will have a taper and stacking lane, such that if you're waiting to turn into the development, you won't be causing any type of holding up queuing along that.
Okay, so the left turn lane is on Medical Center Drive. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
Is SDOT been apprised of what you want to do?
Yes, they've approved the proposed approach and agree with the recommendations. After these meetings, if all goes well, it will then proceed to formal design and encroachment permits through SCDOT.
I have no more questions.
All righty. Will the rebuild of 95 and those ramps at exit 8 have any impact on this parcel?
This development is proposed in a working condition of existing conditions. The planned proposed improvements as they are currently designed and proposed will not impact this. It's all south closer to the intersection, but will alleviate traffic concerns.
All right. What firehouse is going to be responsible for this
83, I believe.
Yep.
in
Hilton Head Lakes.
Hilton Head Lakes?
But, okay, excuse me, I'm violating my own rules. Yes, but that is constantly in flux as we get these new developments. And Chief Camp and city management and capital projects are always looking at what the new options are going to be and where new stations will be located.
And I'm guessing the travel time's got to be 7-8 minutes to get up here.
That's why there are certain areas that are that are overlaps. I can't speak directly, but it may be a Station 81, it may be a Station 83, but they do consider all that before they approve development. We already have the hotels right there. This is right beside that. This will be the same coverage as the
Already
hotels.
a pretty good distance from both the firehouses.
They take that under consideration and they have that worked out because they're not going to do anything. They're not going to approve anything that will impair our ISO rating of a 2.
Okay.
Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a follow-up. On your first exit, that's across from the entrance into the hospital?
Correct.
That's for the fast food place.
Yeah. Okay,
At least they line up.
yeah.
That leads me to the question, have you decided what's going on the commercial site? The traffic study assumed a fast food place.
We wanted the traffic engineer to assume a very high
Worst
load,
case.
yes, to be able to show a multitude of uses, but that is not determined at this time.
Okay.
I would think it would be a traffic load less than what was assumed in the traffic study.
All right, I thought maybe that's why they did that. In this place, you have an idea what are you going to have for apartment sizes? 1, 2, 3 bedrooms, some percentage mix?
Hill Point is a product that specializes in currently only doing 2-bedroom units. So every single proposed unit is a 2-bed, 2-bath.
I did not know that. All right. I saw in your parking you had 720 spaces. Is there any visitor parking shown anywhere in here? I didn't see any.
There will be parking around the clubhouse. The overall 720 is based on a 2-to-1 unit to parking ratio. And so that's as a development as the whole, but as far as the placement and distribution of those 720 parking stalls, we have tried to allocate stalls around and in front of some of the amenities, but that's not supplemental or separate parking. It's all incorporated.
Where's the mail kiosk?
It is if you look in the area where there's purple, where there's the clubhouse, if you go immediate north in that large triangle, that top left is shaded as a mail kiosk.
You got your, okay.
Yes, hit the green button.
Right there.
Oh, okay. What do you have in, or what does Hill Point have in mind for amenities? It doesn't really say, although, you know, there are the few open spaces there for games, but is there a pool? Is there?
Specific amenities will be refined through the final development, but I can say for this development, at minimum, they would have a clubhouse and a pool. That clubhouse typically has amenities such as gym equipment, office space with Wi-Fi and other common amenities you see in apartment complexes.
Okay. Active open space. How much active open space is provided here? It doesn't say anything. If I total up the playfields, that's maybe 1.7% of the total upland area.
So
Not a
so
lot.
the 1.7% is just the purple highlighted pocket parks.
Right.
But all the areas that are green space and have sidewalks interconnecting and meandering through the development, that could all be counted towards active open space. We didn't separate that percentage because the PDD, we wrote it to match the Coastal Land Tract PDD, which doesn't separate active versus non-active open space. So we did it as an open space to
I
meet
know.
that.
But as I look at the MZDO, and I understand it doesn't apply to this, there would be an open space requirement of active open space of 10% or so. So did you do any calculation? I
We-
mean, the
we
three
have-
fields give you 1.7, but that ain't much.
We have not. I'm happy to provide that as supplemental information, but I'm also confident that it would exceed what's required in the MZDO.
Trust but verify. Before it goes to the community meeting, I think that would be good information to have.
Okay.
We've already talked about storm flow into the wetlands. You have one connection to the sanitary for the residential section, one for the commercial. And I just wondered why you don't have a second tie point, say up at your other entrance, to loop it, I guess is what I'm asking.
That is common practice for pressurized lines, so the water distribution system. In working with BJWSA, we're proposing 2 points of connection to loop the system.
That's water.
Yes, but for the sewer, it all flows through gravity, not a pressurized system, so we have a single point of connection.
Thought you had I thought they discussed a lift station in
We-
the documents.
We thought as part of the original design and due diligence that a lift station would be needed, but in coordinating with BJWSA and requesting the depth of the gravity sewer near the hotels, we found that we can continue to run gravity sewer to service this development through gravity sewer without the need of a lift station. As
That's a
such,
pressurized line in Medical Center Drive, isn't it?
there is a force main along Medical Center Drive, which we're not proposing to tie into. And instead, the gravity sewer near the hotels, we are planning to extend that through this development to service it through gravity sewer.
Where is the lift station for this area then, if all that's draining by gravity?
There isn't a lift station immediately in this area. The gravity sewer goes down to the intersection and then continues until there's a lift station that is much further away along 278 that takes it all. The force main along Medical Center Drive is more of a regional force main, and it's an effluent line that BJWSA would actually prefer not to be connected to, such that development after that gravity sewer depth is exceeded would likely need to tie into not that force main, but the gravity sewer near the hotels, which this is tied into.
I did not pick that up. All right. I noticed in the service letter from Palmetto Electric, they offer broadband also in this particular area. So that just says there's two potential providers, you know, Hargray and Palmetto Electric, conceivably. That's not my problem to work out, but. Yeah, so I'm just curious how that will play, and maybe I don't care.
It's not, we don't.
You don't care either, as long as they get internet and telephone. Okay. Jeff's already covered all the traffic and parking kind of questions, so that's all I have. Any follow-up?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. We covered the sidewalks. Street lighting. Recommend that you look at solar.
That and for your entry signs too, I mean.
You know, I do have a question on this south entrance into the commercial area, because it's also the entrance into the hospital. There will be no left turn lane there?
That is one of the proposed left turn lanes.
I thought you said 2 and 3.
No, 1 and 2.
1 and 2.
2 and 3 was what I picked up off the traffic study.
But actually, Steve, expounding on that question, if you have a left turn going northbound at the hospital entrance, does it justify a left turn southbound
You don't have-
into the hospital?
No. I'm talking about a left turn into the future development, into the commercial. If you don't have a left turn lane there and you have an ambulance trying to get into the hospital,
There
You
is
got a
left-
problem.
There's a left turn in the commercial.
There's a left turn right there. Yep. It's shown.
But like I
So
said,
it's at this entrance and this entrance.
yeah, if you expand, the wording was a little funny the way they had it. But carrying out that, should there be a left turn southbound at the commercial to go into the hospital?
Yeah, we can't.
you mean,
DOT owns Medical Center Drive.
I understand.
So DOT will make the determination when that left turn into the hospital, if at any point it is justified. At this time, they do not. It's not tied to this.
Coming this way.
coming south on Medical Center Drive?
We're gonna have one going north. I just question whether there should be one south at that commercial pad to get into the hospital. Let's say that your 360 people, half of them work at the hospital. They're gonna be making a lot of left
Good
turns.
point. But
But anyway, that's SDOT's problem, right? That's what you're telling me.
there is another entrance to the hospital, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, up front.
Well, yes, you're right.
Yeah, there's another one.
That's one I was concerned, never mind.
Yeah, the conclusion in the traffic study just does say driveways 2 and 3. It doesn't say anything about driveway 1.
That's why I questioned it.
Yeah, they numbered them backwards.
But it would make sense to have one at driveway 1. And if you say it's going to be there, I'll trust it. You're going to put it there.
All right. Any other follow-on? Any questions from the audience? The audience is moot. All right, do we have a motion to approve or modify?
Hang on. I
Mr.
move,
Chairman, I'd like to
go ahead.
make a motion that we approve the master plan for parcels 04200050055 and 042005050, known as Medical Center Drive multifamily, located on Medical Center Drive.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank y'all.
Go forth, Connor, and build.
He's got a ways to go before that.
All right, that takes us to the place in the agenda where we get the manager's report.
All right. So just briefly, we've spent a lot of time on the MZDO, so we've been busy with that. Couple updates on projects. So the car track and Riverport will be on tomorrow night's city council agenda. The park initial master plan and farmhouse initial master plan. The park will have its first reading in January. The farmhouse will continue their process in January as well. There was a development permit issued for it doesn't sound as nice as it's going to look, but a landscape supply company on White Hardy Boulevard where the old Chinese restaurant and Knights Inn burned down. So they will be, with that redevelopment of that property, they will be adding some landscaping and screening and fixing up the old Chinese building and making it an office. So that'll be nice addition there. The bike and pedestrian trail behind City Hall, there's a ribbon cutting for that next week. Yeah. And one of the projects that didn't come through here because it was straight zoning, but I know you've asked a lot of questions about the commercial 3 buildings that are on 170. We are getting some zoning permit applications now for businesses to actually go into those buildings. So one of them is going to take an entire building called Oshner Healthcare. It's a 65 and older medical office, but they also offer like some opportunities for like social like card playing and that kind of thing. So they have a little center for that. And then Papa Murphy's Take and Bake Pizza, a Japanese mostly carry-out restaurant, and a cryotherapy, which is a cold laser therapy type thing, that will be going in there as well. So we're like I said, we're excited to see some businesses coming forward, and yes.
And my
I
wife's
was-
gonna like that.
I was excited about that too. And so that will be within golf cart distance from Sun City, so that'll be a nice addition. So that's all I have today. We're still continuing to push through with SRC projects. It's just like Connor mentioned a few minutes ago, it takes over a year to get a permit from the state right now, so some things we're just waiting on at this moment, but
So that brings me to the 3 PDDs we approve kind of in that area south of exit 5. There were 2 of them on the west side of the road. In fact, we kind of touched on them today. Anything new on those?
we had, so we have Gateway Oasis. I'm working, before that, we have, yes. No, on the other side of the road, the Gateway Cross. No, yeah, Gateway Crossing.
Which side of
Are you talking about by Quick Trip and all that? We have a lot of PDDs. Sherwood was a while ago. That's,
The ones I'm talking about are just to the north of Riverport. Riverport kind of goes.
that's
around.
Sherwood. That's just
Sherwood?
one PDD. Yep. That's Sherwood.
There's 2 there. Anyway,
It's 2 separate entities, but it's one PDD.
all right, so
We are reviewing some initial access and infrastructure plans through staff review committee, which will then be able to make those properties more marketable. But there's been a lot of interest in those properties. I just don't have anything I can really confirm. We don't even know the companies that are looking at it right now. They just, but that's all being done through Southern Carolina.
But after you're done with it, then DHEC has to approve all the infrastructure, right? So,
They're working concurrently on with the infrastructure. That's part of their approval through SRC. We don't issue a site permit without that. And they've been working on that for quite some time, so.
and then there was a PDD we approved by the Marble Place. It's kind of
That's clear.
back off of 17, okay.
It is full-blown construction. They have
All right.
approvals for 4 buildings, the first 4 buildings. So I think there's only one after that. But A through D, yes. So if you go out there, if you go down Levy Road, you will see.
Can't miss it.
You can, yeah,
That's Clarion?
Clarius.
Clarius. That's under construction. I guess I need to go out and look.
You won't see any, I don't think you'll see any building walls going vertical yet, but they are doing full land development in preparation for that. And they do have the buildings, if they haven't been approved, they're close to it with the building department, but they've all been submitted.
All right.
And there's also in front of that, directly next to the Marble Place, there was one that was approved years ago, that's finally coming to fruition. They have started some site development, and they'll be doing some smaller spaces for limited industrial. So like, those HVAC companies or, those plumbers that need those spaces will have a quality new place to go.
Anything new on the realignment of Argent shortcut Jasper Station?
You would have to ask Mr. Davis on that unless Brenna has any information.
I don't really have information. I do know that Matt, our deputy city manager, Matt Davis, is working on that diligently. They're still concerned with that water line and who's paying for what, but it is moving forward. It's just a slow process. I do know that. I know that he has also been working on different turn lanes and different improvements on Argent and 278, and I will get him to send us out an update.
I was gonna say, could you ask him to step
Absolutely.
in next month?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's important. Now, I will say I am thrilled with the 2 new left turn lanes from Argent to 170. Vast improvements, really cut down the backup northbound on 170 in the afternoon. I mean, that was always backed up, sometimes as far as the firehouse. So that's a vast improvement there. So, anything anybody else has to say?
Couple of questions. I'm hearing rumors that something's going on at the intersection of 278 and 17 in the vicinity of the Holiday Inn.
There are rumors. There's a lot going on, a lot being said. We do not have any applications at this time. As soon as we do have something, we will most.
So it's just wishful thinking on people's part?
Yep.
haven't even had a pre-app.
Yes, I mean, we hear things also, and we're like, really, a lot of things that are put in on the newspaper, social media.
Like the Costco.
No, it's,
But as soon as we have anything, you most definitely will be aware.
because if that rumor comes to fruition, that's a hell of a lot of traffic.
So, there's a lot of those supposings going on,
Okay.
for lack of a better word.
The only other thing I have is Saturday, out front, 12 o'clock, Reach Across America formal presentation. And I understand that we're going to have a World War II veteran in attendance. So that would be very nice.
I hope
He-
the weather holds up.
He will be recognized.
I just want to thank staff for all the work they've put in on the MZDO through all its various iterations. I'm sure you'll be happy to be done with it. And
Oh, no, we'll just find out all the kinks and then we'll be back.
Yes.
it's about time to start on the comprehensive plan again, isn't it?
Oh, shut up.
Budget season starts next month we're a retreat by city council and some staff members. And so we'll be looking at a comp plan and my budget as well as some other things. So thank you.
Because we gotta do to look at it, right? We gotta do to look at it.
Absolutely.
Comp plans are 5 years, right?
You review every
Well,
5 years, update every 10 years.
5 years after it gets approved.
Lord, I can't
We're gonna
remember
talk-
when we approved it. We talked about it for years.
We talked about it for 10 years.
5 years will be 2024.
We were 10 years
Next
in
year. Oh, gee. Oh.
I move we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
See you next month, everyone.